I want to take a deep dive on the menus for the DSMC2. There's so many settings that are deep and buried in the menus. It takes a long time to learn them, and since it's a touch screen, it can be a little weird to navigate. So even though I know there are the newer cameras, I'm gonna talk about the DSMC2 because that's what I own. I've had it for a long time. I love the camera, I love the Dragon sensor. But all that said, what I really wanna do is just help you. So like, you go to the rental house, you pick up the camera, you bring it back, and you don't know what are the things that need to be like good to make nice images, because they are highly technical machines. I think RED gets a really bad rap, and I actually think Sony does too, because people talk about, oh, the menus are so deep, they're so confusing. It's like a hot topic of people to complain about how confusing they are. But these cameras can do a lot of things. So they have a ton of features, and I don't know if there's a logical way to lay out all the various things that they can do. I will admit that sometimes the really annoying thing is like, on cameras like this, especially I find with the Sonys, is that you have a certain setting set one way and then it restricts you from being able to do other settings, but it doesn't really tell you what the restriction is coming from, which can be really confusing. So anyways, I'm going to hop out of the seat and we're gonna take a look in the menus. We're gonna look on the screen of the RED. We're gonna touch around, navigate it, and jump around, and when you rent your RED camera, you'll be good to go. So here we are. Before I go too deep in on any of the specific menus, I think it's helpful to maybe just give like a real quick overlay of your sort of heads up display. So to start with, in the upper left corner, you have your frame rates. That's where you're gonna control like the project frame rate. You're gonna control the off-speed frame rates if you're shooting slow motion. Right here, you have the ISO, which we are shooting RAW, so ISO does not get baked in. It can be changed after the fact using RED CineX or Premiere, or most NLEs support it. Right there, you've got that for the aperture. I'm using a manual lens. You saw that 16, that Sigma. You saw that Sigma 18 to 35. And so that's the lens I'm using, and it's manual, so that number is grayed out. Next to it, we have the shutter angle. You know, depending on what camera you've worked on, you might know this is a shutter speed. I think you can change that in the settings, which we will take a look at, but yeah, your shutter angle, so you can change it. Nice thing about the shutter angle is then when you change your frame rates, it will change with them, so you don't have to mess around with it. White balance, I don't think that's the right setting actually, but yeah, you can set the white balance, you can set the tint. Again, that's metadata, so that can be changed after the fact. I find using the RED, I don't set the white balance as religiously as I do when I'm using my other cameras, because I always know I can do it later, even though it's best to just do it while you're doing it. We have resolution, so 6K HD, which means 16:9. We'll go into that in detail and talk about how the different resolutions work with RED cameras. Next to that, 8:1, that's the compression ratio. So 8:1, so I will get into that as well when I talk more specifically about it, but that's your compression. Here, menus, this will get us deep into the menus. We for sure are gonna be going through all of those. Bottom left, this is playback. If you hit that, it's gonna take you into the playback menu. If we play it back, you know, pretty straight ahead. It's just like a control menu, thumbnail menu. You can scrub through it, whatever. I don't find that it's always the most responsive. Like, yeah, you can see right there, not the most responsive, but that's basically that. I think you can maybe change some metadata here, but it's just a player. Right here, we have, this is kind of, it's unique to RED. It's like a histogram, but I'll talk about it in detail. You can control other video settings in here too, if you kind of hold it and then scroll up, which is good to know. A lot of people don't know these tools are here, so we can talk about those tools. You've got your clip name, obviously you can assign that. Right here, you have temperature. So with the RED sensors, you want to keep the temperatures in a certain range. So that's helpful to know. We'll talk about that when we get to it. Wi-Fi sync settings. This is for your Genlock, timecode, Wi-Fi. Here you have the remaining time on the SSD at the given compression ratio. So this is a 480 gig card, 8:1, 6K, and we're gonna get about 90 minutes, a little less than that. Here we have the battery, remaining battery. I don't use official RED branded batteries, so I don't get the minutes remaining. I get the voltage meter. I'm sure this will die at some point while we're doing this because the RED is pretty power hungry. You can also plug it into the mains. You know, maybe I should just do that. And we're back, and that's really probably one of the good tips to know about the RED right out the gate is you should be plugging it in when you can, because it will chew through these V-mount batteries. I don't care how big they are, they do not last very long. Okay, so continuing on down the menu here, that is the voltage. Just so you know, when it hits like, I think 12.4 or something like that, it'll shut down. I usually cut it off around like, once I get below 13, I start eyeing the batteries. So then you've got the audio meters. Audio meters on RED are fine. The meters are fine. The quality is trash. I use an A box so I can take like a camera hop or something like that, or a line from a mixer, or even if I'm doing it myself, I will run, you know, a return. But honestly, the preamps in here are so jacked, I would just totally skip that. In fact, I don't think I'm even really gonna waste much time with it, because unfortunately, the truth of RED is you really can't record audio in the camera. It's always gonna be terrible, and you need to do it externally. So let's get deep into the menus. In all these menus, they're structured kind of the same way, where it's like you have the main dials that you're gonna need. There's gonna be like an advanced menu, which will give you some extra options. And then you'll have this list. So you can edit the list that you're cycling through here. So if you wanted to see fewer or more options, you could click edit list, and then it's gonna give you the option to set up a custom input menu. Let's look at the frame rates. So you hit the frame rate and you're gonna get all these options for off speed. Now it is different depending on which body you have. So like if you have the Scarlett W, you're gonna have less. If you have the Monstro, you know, you might have more in certain resolutions. So with REDs, it's the resolution is gonna dictate the frame rates that are available to you. So if we were to go and let's say real quickly, and I'll show you this menu too, but let's say real quickly, we just flip to, let's say we go to 4K. Okay, we set the format. A couple things are gonna happen. So one thing you'll notice is that it crops in a bit, and it does that because, you know, with RED, it doesn't downsample the whole sensor. So when you go from 6K to 4K, it's gonna be cropping it in. But what happens with the frame rates? Let's look. So now we have frame rates in 4K, and they go higher. They go up to 120. That's a question I think a lot of people have, which is, oh, why can't I see the higher frame rates that are, you know, listed in the specs? Well, you have to make sure you're in the right resolution to unlock the frame rates. This is kind of exactly the thing I was talking about earlier. It's just a little bit confusing. So we'll go back to 6K just so we can, you know, have apples to apples until we get to the resolution part. But the other thing to know about frame rate is that if you're shooting like 30p, you might be like, oh, I'll just flip it over to 30p. Well, no, you don't want to do that, because the 2398, if you look right here, is your time base. And if you switched it right here to 2997, it would actually be recording off speed in 2398, and it would be slow-mo, and then the camera conforms it in the camera. So that would be a nightmare. You really don't want to do that. So if you're shooting other time bases, you can set them here. It gives you the common ones: 2396, 24, 60, 30, 2997, etc., 25. I mean, that's pretty much, those are gonna be what you're doing. Oh, we're not in PAL land here. We're gonna stay 2398. But yeah, that's the main thing to know, is set the project resolution base. And then if you wanna do off-speed stuff, it's nice because you can just flip that up and cycle through them and you're good to go. So ISO. So the base ISO of this camera, I believe it is 800. So I would rate it on the Dragon-X personally. I mean, if you can rate it around 400 or something, it's gonna look so good. 800 still will look good. You probably get the most dynamic range around 800, but you will see some noise in the shadows. This camera, I just wouldn't recommend going over 1600. It starts to get kind of nasty. And you can see an advanced menu, which will give you some extra options. In this case, I'm gonna say don't even worry about this FLUT. It has something to do with the way that the curve is distributed over the ISO range. It's a metadata thing. There are some things I'll gloss over because the metadata aspect of it can be really heavy in the camera, and a lot of that stuff, especially if you're just gonna be going to log and grading it, is gonna be unused, or otherwise you kind of get it in camera. So the other menu, when you're looking at these, you can edit the list that you're cycling through here. So you could click edit list, and then it's gonna give you the option to set up custom input menu where you can add or subtract these. I usually keep it with the default. You saw in the resolution, I actually don't, because I often shoot weirder resolutions that I guess RED doesn't consider to be default resolutions, but it is really nice that they give us the option. So if you were using a lens that you controlled the iris, like an EF lens through the camera, you would do it there. The shutter speed, shutter angle, I believe you can change it. There you go. So you can change it to speed if you want, or angle there in the advanced menu. I definitely would say keep it at angle. If you're mostly a photographer and you're shooting video for the first time, the thing to know is the 180-degree angle is basically a shutter speed that's just twice the rate of your frame rate. So 180-degree angle at 23.98 is like 47, whatever, 48 basically. So that's why a lot of people on a mirrorless camera or a DSLR, they'll say shoot a 50th, shutter speed when you're doing video. But the thing is, if you, let's say you switch, you say, I want to shoot slow-mo, I want to shoot 60. Well, if you go to 60 and you have 180-degree shutter, it will automatically change the effective shutter speed because it uses the angle instead of the speed. So if you go to 60, now you'll know, okay, I am losing a ton of light here. So if you had it at speed, I've sometimes done that on like the A7S III or any of the mirrorless cameras where it doesn't do that, you'll notice that, oh man, I switched to something off speed and now the frame rate is weird. Why is that happening? So this is how you can help with that. So continuing on down the line here, we have white balance. So in the advanced menu on this, I think it's just the tint, but overall, like pretty straightforward. I think the tint is just, I don't know why that is what it is. You can do an auto in here too, as you see, or you can just punch it in manually. I guess maybe I was in a really green environment. This camera's a little green in general, so, a bit of magenta doesn't hurt. Resolution. So you can see I've created a smaller menu here because I like the 5.5K because that lets me use like my Super 35 lenses without vignetting. Actually, I think this one is Super 35, and you could even see there is a bit of vignette if I go out all the way. It's hard to see, but yeah, so it lets me use my Super 35 lenses and it kind of still maxes out the resolution. So I like that, but that's because I'm in a custom. If you were to go to advanced, you can just set the individuals. Like you have all the options in here. And you can go all the way down to 2K. And 2K, I don't know, let's see, what is the frame rate in 2K? I don't know, I never do it because you're gonna see how tight it gets. So this is like a really important thing. Yeah, that's absurd. It's a really important thing to know with RED. The advertised frame rates for these lower resolutions are just not that usable because you're cropping so far in. I mean, 240, it's pretty sick. I have done some shots. If you're shooting drinks or something, what I would say is if you really want to use it and you're finishing in 2K, you can get away with it, but shoot at the lowest ISO possible. Like max out the light because you're zooming in so far into it. You're just gonna see a ton of noise. You're gonna see a ton of grain. And that's obviously not what you want. So shoot the biggest resolution that you can. We're on a Super 35 lens, so we'll keep it 5.5K HD. Okay. Look in here, compression. This is a thing people often confuse or don't understand. And I know this is different on the new REDs where it's like high, medium, and low quality options for the RED RAW. But the thing about RED RAW that is so awesome is that it's compressed RAW, it keeps the metadata, it's really great image quality, huge resolutions, and it's a manageable data rate. So take a look down here, you can see the amount of time left, 133. That's because I switched from 6K to 5K, so it will automatically reinterpret how much is left on the card. But the other thing is, if I had to go to 10:1, well, now I can shoot 2 hours. If I'm shooting like long interviews and I don't care if they look like the world's best, 12:1. So I would have, that gives me, what is that, about 140 minutes on a 480 card. So, I mean, that's pretty good for RED. I mean, yeah, it would be a lot less, like it's definitely a lot less on the FX9 or something. Okay, so that's the compression rate. So it's nice because if you're shooting something where you really need, the best quality, then you can just choose those larger compressions, but you can see that it dramatically affects the recording time. So you really have to decide what it is that you're trying to do. If you're shooting like a long interview or something like that, 10:1, 12:1, 8:1 if you really care about it. So I think this is like one of the best features about these, and it's not in, hopefully they bring it in the new ones, but you can't do it in the new cameras. In the new ones, like I said, it's like a high, medium, low sort of thing, and the low quality is still a very high bit rate. I think it's much higher bit rate than this, so you get even less time. So that is one of the nice little things that you can do that's an advantage on this system. On the scopes, so the way that it works on RED with this scope is you have these, they call them goalposts at the front and the back. And so those are gonna tell you if you're clipping any information on the raw, since a lot of this is metadata, like the ISO, like, okay, if I stop it down on the lens, now you see the red. So that's because we're losing the information in the blacks. But if it's just sitting lower there, then you could up the ISO and recover it a bit. Same thing on the highlights, like if you go out and blast it into the sun, then you'll see it clipping the goalpost on the right. So really, they say that what you want to do is just keep it in the goalposts. I would still say expose to the right where you can, because, you know, even this area here, even though technically you have the information, it can be a little bit noisy. And then, like I showed you before, if you slide up on this, you've got these options. The one that I use a lot, this geoscope, what it can do is, it's kind of cool. It's a red thing. If you click it, once you have it set up, you'll see that basically you can choose which stops you want to see highlighted. So like if you want to see the midtones, you could click like the midtones. Okay, now we know what part of the image is sitting there. So it's like almost a version of false color, but it can be really helpful because it's using that metadata, the raw, you know, it's telling you the raw information on the sensor versus just like what you're looking at. So that's what you got to keep in mind, because it is raw and it's not like shooting on another camera that is, you know, you're shooting to a log or something like that. It's all metadata. So what you're seeing on the screen is not necessarily what you're getting. It's just a different way of approaching it. On the temperature right here, so one of them is the temperature it's calibrated at. Oh, it just moved. So it looks like it's calibrated for the one on the right, and then the one on the left is the current temperature of the sensor. When it's within a range that's safe, it's green. If you were to take it into a really hot environment, when it's not calibrated for that, then it will turn red here. And then there are some image issues that occasionally will pop up. It's not something I have ever really worried about, except like in those extreme environments. And the solution to that is then to black balance the camera in that environment. And then that will get a black shade for the temperature at the environment that you want to use it. And then you can set a few different black shades. I think there's like 2 options that you can do, but it takes a long time. So I'll show you that in the menu. So here, yeah, you've got time remaining. It's also how you format it. I would definitely stay with, when you hit format, it'll give you the option, just keep it with FAT32, because RED just plays better with this. There are other options. Basically the difference is FAT32 is really if you're shooting raw. If you were to shoot the ProRes proxies that you can do, you probably want to make it UDF. And the reason is that FAT32 are small files, so you'll get like 50 small files if you shoot something big. If you just want that one ProRes QuickTime file, that's a thing to know. So that's definitely important if you're renting this, or if you haven't used one of these and you were planning to deliver ProRes, which some people are, although it's really not the reason to use the camera. You should probably be shooting raw, but if you want to deliver ProRes, make sure you set that to UDF, and I would make sure you format it and you test it. One thing I have noticed is going back and forth between UDF and FAT32 sometimes has caused some issues with the cards, so you want to make sure you do like a nice low-level format, test it, and shoot it in your preferred thing. Shoot tests of the final footage and make sure that you're going to get the file type that you need. So a couple things to just like see in the menu that you need to know. Like, so image, what is this? Well, this is the metadata of the camera. This is extremely confusing. Like, most people have no idea what's going on here because it's so confusing. Essentially, what RED did is there are 2 versions of what they call the image pipeline, but basically it's like the color profile. Now, since it is raw, you can always change it after the fact, so it's not that big of a deal. But one of the advantages of using these cameras is that the colors out of the box are nice, and so you don't want to have to mess around with LUTs all the time. Like, it's nice to be able to just give files to someone that actually look good. So the thing to know about the image pipeline is that there are 2 options. So I usually use this legacy because it seems like what colorists are most used to using. If I wanted to give them a log, then I would just change this instead of having, or I would actually keep it Dragon color, and I would change the gamma to red log film, and then that would be what I would deliver to the colorist. You can also change that in post. So if you want to see the color in camera when you're shooting it, shoot it like this. Now the new cameras, and this was a new-ish camera, but like the new ones, they all use this IPP2 is what they call it. I'm gonna turn that on so you can see it. It's a totally different way of using color. And so what it is it's basically letting you put a look. So in this case, we're choosing to see it in Rec 709. If we wanted to see it in log, then we would have to change these output settings. So the other thing is, rather than giving you, like in Legacy, you kind of have a little bit more control over these nuances. Here, it's like you choose the contrast level that you want on the image, medium, low, high, and then you choose the softness of the whites. So if you wanted to like have a very soft highlight roll off, you would go soft, and then that's basically what you're shooting. On this end, I would keep it in Rec 709. I think you can also, like if we turn this down, so, the image doesn't look like dramatically different, but it is. The colors read a little bit differently, and like the contrast you control differently. One really big gotcha, huge gotcha, is when you get these cameras, if they're set to IPP2, there are some settings that are in the Legacy settings that I'm gonna show you that you need to make sure are at least zeroed out if you wanna record the IPP2, because curves, for instance, these curves will maintain even if you switch to IPP2, but you can't control them when you're in that setting. So you actually have to take it back to the Legacy color format if you wanna start from scratch. And you need to check these curves if you rent this camera or something, because people will change these and then you'll get them and you won't know that they're set the way they are, and you'll wonder, like, why does the image look so contrasty? Like, what's going on? And it could be buried in this, and if you're in IPP2, you can't even access the curves. So that's the thing to know. You can put LUTs in it. On the color side, I mean, it's pretty obvious here, right? Like you can change the basic settings, but generally I would say just pick the image pipeline that you want, make sure that the curves are set neutrally, and then just expose and shoot it in camera as best as you can. And then if you're delivering files that need to be, they're just gonna finish them as you shoot them, use a color in the camera that you like. And then if you know that they're gonna have to go to be graded, then you could shoot red log film. There's things you can do with IPP2 as well, but I don't do those workflows as much because I feel like with these DSMC2 cameras, most people are just using this workflow. So other things to know in the monitoring section, each monitor, depending on where you plug it in, is gonna have its own set of options as far as some overlays, and like you can change the color profile that it uses to look up the image if you're shooting it flat. So all of these are different. Basically, RED has its own 2 proprietary ports, which are this LCD top and the EVF top. I'm using the RED top with this braided cable here, you can see, but on these cameras you can plug them in directly, or you can use this kind of extension thing, which is what I'm using. But basically you have those 2 outputs for like the RED specific monitors or viewfinders, and then you also have like the options for the HD SDI and the HDMI, where you can control the basic settings. So you can choose to send it clean, or you can send it with overlays if you want the RED overlays, as you see them on here. I usually just send it clean. And I don't think so you're gonna top out at HD in the SDI, and in the HDMI, I think you top out in HD too. Yeah, I can't do 4K. So those are kind of your options. One thing to know is if you're using both the top and the left RED monitors, which not many people do, but if you're using them both, you can't use the HDMI. It overrides the HDMI. So if you wanna use the HDMI, you can only use one of those ports. The priority menu is good to know because it's gonna prioritize the order. So that's kind of what I'm saying. If you want HDMI to always be prioritized, then it will disable the other output. It's just a thing to know. If something's not turning on, look in the priorities, because it may just not be prioritized properly. Let's see here. No, there's really nothing here to know. The nice thing in this advanced menu, you can flip it. I use that a lot because the monitor ends up getting turned around. So that's a thing to know. But that's pretty much the only thing in there. So there is, let's see here. I think you could set that. Yeah, here you go. So you can flip and mirror it here. And then peaking, I have it set to a button. And I think that might be actually how it works. it's a monitor setting. Maybe it's down in this menu, let's see. Yep, there you go. So peaking, edge, detection, you know, if you want to be able to punch in focus and stuff like that. These are all quick menus, and then you can assign these to buttons too, but that's, you access them through that. So that's good to know. I forgot about that because I've assigned those to buttons. Overlays. So you can see I actually have an overlay going on right now that's like a 9:16. Often, yeah, if you're shooting something and you want to be able to pull it, you know, for social or something like that, you would shoot the higher resolution, and then you can set, it's nice, you can set the exact pixel dimensions that you want as your guides, and then you can turn them on or off. And then there's a couple tools that you can disable or enable here, but nothing major. Most of the tools are built into the interface. It's really more if you want those overlays or grids or safe zones or something like that. This, nothing here, nothing to know. Never used it. Power. Playback we looked at, media we looked at. I think this is just, yeah, this is just gonna pull up the same kind of thing that we did down there. There are deeper settings here too. So you got project settings. That's where you'll change like the clip name, the reel number or whatever. You can also do it just when you format the card. If you want to change those, I'll show you here. Look, you can do it right here. And you format it. So you could just reset the reel, A, whatever. It's kind of nice. You can do it on these really quickly. That's really the way to do it. All right, go back to the menu. We're in settings. Some other assistant things, you know, the audio meters, which you can also access if you just click these. Again, I wouldn't even mess with them. They're trash. The thing to know in here, there are a couple important things. Setup, if you want to do the wireless, like you can get an app or something like that. I think you might actually have to pay for it, but you do that in the communication here. You can also control the fan. A lot of people want to know that. I just keep it to quiet, so it's quiet as much as it can. That dictates the temperature. So if you're in a situation where the sensor is running really hot, then you probably need to turn the fan settings up a bit. If it's really loud when you're recording, then for sure, like, you need to turn it down. The lens, yeah, I mean, I don't really use the lenses, the auto lenses as much on this, or really at all, so I don't know that one too well, but it's pretty straightforward. Maintenance is an important thing to know. So you can calibrate the black shade, like I mentioned. So that's this right here. And then also sometimes you'll need to calibrate the gyro. That's for the horizon level. So that's good to know. And then this, so you can see calibration. So if you're in an extreme environment and you want to calibrate it, then you do it right here. So you can just like put it in the environment that it needs to be, plug it in and let it run. It takes a while, like an hour or longer. So, you know, you need some time to do it. Well, I hope that was helpful. It's definitely an insanely powerful camera. All of these REDs are. Although there are a lot of great cameras out there, the raw capability is just so nice to work with. Having that metadata is so nice, and it makes up for some of the, you know, more cumbersome aspects of the camera, to me, for certain things. But part of that is I don't use it for every single project. I use it on commercials, I use it on movies, and that's why it's like, it's maybe not the newest one. I think if you have the newest, most expensive one, it can feel like, oh, there's such a need to rent this out to make your money back, to be, you know, consigning it at a rental house. Whereas something like this, I'm like, it's worked for a long time. It's kind of paid for itself. It takes great images, and so I can just kind of use it for the things where it needs to be used. And that's what I think RED is really great for, using it in the right context for the right project. You will not be disappointed because the image quality is outstanding. So I hope this video was helpful. My name's Remzi Atassi. I'm a filmmaker, director of photography, and I make videos about the technical side of filmmaking, the art of filmmaking, the business of filmmaking. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, please subscribe, hit the bell, drop a comment, let me know what you're interested in. We'll see you on the next one.